Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Two Charlottes Spill the Tea. We have got a great episode for you tonight, and it's something that I hope will resonate with a lot of people that listen to us. So, we wanted to talk a little bit about life as a single mom, kind of parenting struggles, really, because it's something that we talk about a lot to each other with. Both of us, I'm not a single mom anymore, I'm married, but I'm also a stepmom. And my husband is my son's stepdad, and Charlotte is a single mom at the moment. So we quite often talk about issues and troubles that we come across, parenting. I have a teenage son. Charlotte has a teenage daughter, and she also has her toddler. And my stepchildren are 9 and 11. So there's things that come up. I mean, especially for me as a first time boy mum, there's things that come up that I have to talk to someone about. And we were just saying to each other the other day, it's like, you know what? A lot of this stuff people just don't talk about.
Mm,
And so many of us, without a doubt, so many of us go through such similar things. And so we just really wanted to kind of highlight some awareness of just our daily struggles and our daily kind of life situations and what we've been through. And I suppose one thing that I wanted to start off talking about today, and one thing, that resonates for both of us, is being a single mum and kind of the struggles that come with being a single mum. So I actually have two children. My eldest daughter is 24. And when I had her, I was with her dad for a little. I was going to say father, then I thought that sounded very posh, and I'm not at all posh. I was with her dad until she was about 6 months old. And if you've heard some of our previous podcasts, you'll know exactly what that relationship was all about and how hard it was. So after I was with her dad, I was obviously a single parent, and I was a single parent for many, many years. When I was first a single parent, when she was just a few months old, I was on benefits. And I was not only kind of miserable, stuck on benefits, and I felt like I didn't have a lot of money at all, and I could never do anything. I could barely afford to keep her in nappies, to be honest with you. It was very hard financially, and I just wanted to get back to work. I just wanted to go and work, and occupy my mind as well, and to just get out of that being stuck at home all the time with my baby. And don't get me wrong, I loved my daughter very much. I still do. I love her very much. But I needed some kind of adult stimulation, adult company, someone else to talk to that could actually string a sentence back to me. So my brain didn't feel like it was slowly turning into baby mush. So going back to work was a really exciting time for me. And I did get back into work, and I actually ended up with three different jobs because I found it very hard to find a solid job that I could do with reliable childcare. And so I ended up with three different jobs, one for a couple of hours in the morning. I had one for a couple of hours in the afternoon, and then I had a job for 4 or 5 hours in the evening. So they were all doing different things, but it worked until it didn't. So I started to find when I tried to get a job that was one solid job, 9 to 5, it was impossible. Being a single parent, having no one to fall on for childcare, you know, trying to rely on my friends to mind her for me, and, trying to afford to pay people to mind her for me. So I didn't feel like I was taking advantage of people. I just couldn't afford that long term. It wasn't viable. And it was actually really, really hard. And then trying to find people that could have her for that length of time, it was impossible. And then when she started preschool, it was trying to find people that could pick her up after preschool, or drop her to preschool. And it was a constant source of stress and a battleground. So I tried to find jobs that I could fit the one in the morning when she was at preschool. Fine, I could drop her at preschool, go to work, come back. That was easy, but it wasn't enough money for me to live on. And it didn't really work out with the benefit that, it just, I needed to earn more money to make the benefits that would accompany that worthwhile. So then it was finding people to have her in the afternoon, and then finding people that would sit at my house in the evening because it was her bedtime and just sit in my house each night. It's not as simple as I'll just get a childminder.
mm,
It's really not. It's so much harder. So things were becoming more and more difficult, and I was ending up having a lot of time off work because I didn't have someone to mind her. And I knew the people I worked for was getting stressed out, and that was making me stressed. And it went on for probably far too long. And in the end, I made a decision to stop working and to go on benefits. And oh my gosh, how awful was that? It was, and you know what? It was awful in the sense of how I was made to feel by just the general public, not by my friends at all. My friends thought that I made the right decision, but just the stigma that comes with being a single mom on benefits, and especially a single mom on benefits that's like 20 years old, because you're so young. You know, you're so young compared to everyone else, and you just feel like you fall into that. What's the word?
Stereotype.
It's like a stereotype. And I just felt so stereotyped. I was so ashamed to tell when people say, "So what do you do for a living?" "Oh, well, I don't actually work. Like, I'm a full-time mum." That doesn't cut it. People are like, "What do you do?" "Well, I'm a stay-at-home mum." As if it's, you know, not an important job, as if it's nothing. And I've really struggled with that. And you know, me now today, I wouldn't give two shits what anyone thought about my parenting decisions or, you know, my choice to work or not. But when you're that young as a parent, it can be really tough mentally. And I did find it really tough, although it was better for me to be at home with Maya and to be able to take care of her and look after her. I felt like I was just falling into this bracket of, you know, stuck in this kind of government paid loophole of being on benefits and never being able to get out of it. And I did start to feel like that was it. That was my life. I was just going to be a mum, a single mum on benefits for the rest of my life. And it was really kind of hard going for me anyway.
No, it is. It is really hard. And like the stereotype around like single parents on benefits is actually shocking because
Yeah.
you know, and what's like really bad, right? So from what you were just saying, the worst part of that is if you were married to a man that earned loads of money and you said, "Oh, I'm a full-time mum," or, "Oh, I'm a stay-at-home mum," you would get the response of, "Oh, how lovely, how wonderful that you can do that." But because you were a single stay-at-home mum, everyone's like, "Oh, so they're just scrounging off the government, not working, can't be asked, lazy." Like, and that's so tragic for our like society. It really is
Yeah,
so tragic.
it
Like,
really is. And it hasn't like improved as time has gone on.
no, it hasn't. And what's like, because I, you know, I'm quite open about my situation. Obviously, I am a single parent. I've got two, you know, two kids, and I am, you know, semi-successfully co-parenting with my youngest daughter's dad. You know, we obviously there's still places and things that we would like to make it better and to work on, but you know, kind of current situations don't allow for that. But we are working through all of that. And but 90% of the time it is, you know, it is me and I do work, but I do also claim the benefits I'm entitled to. But people are like, oh, they make those faces when you're like, you know, "Oh, I can, you know, I received this benefit," or "Yeah, I get that kind of, you know, grant for this," or "I get that discount for that because of this." And it's the faces you get off people. And I'm like, well, actually, hang on a minute, because I pay tax on my income and then I claim the benefits. So actually, like, I'm just getting monthly tax rebates as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm just getting my tax back that I'm already
Yeah.
paying. You know, I do have a job, like, but trying to work, you know, I work like semi full time. So I'm actually really lucky in the sense that my boss is unbelievably flexible with my situation. And that's something that I don't take for granted at all, because I know that a lot of other single parents that want to work really, really struggle with it. But I am really lucky that my boss understands that, you know, it is just me and, you know, I've got to kind of work around the kids. But even working like semi full time, because I do work in the evenings at home, you know, I'm allowed to change my hours to work around, you know, like preschool and, you know, childcare and things like that. But you know, even trying to work with two kids as a single person, you need that extra bit of help. And I don't think there should be any shame in asking for that bit of financial help, especially because I got my first job when I was 15. So I've been working like for like 20 years. I'm 35 now. So
Yeah.
I've been working for like 20 years. I took like 2 years out after Grace was born because of all of the problems I had. I wasn't in a fit state to be able to work, with the like mental health problems and the drug addiction,
Yeah.
having to go through all of that with Grace. I wasn't in a place to be able to actually hold down a job. So I didn't work. But other than that, I've consistently had a job. So I don't think there's anything wrong if you are a single parent trying to work the best you can, whether it be you can only work the 15 hours that your kids are at preschool because they're young, or you can only work on the weekends when their dad has them, or you've got a family member that will help you, or you can work at home doing something because then you can work around your kids and it's flexible or whatever. Like, if you need to take that extra bit of help, I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with it, and it makes me really cross when people judge it.
It's that silent judgment, isn't it? The look that you
Same.
were saying about that look, and you just know people are judging you. And even when I was listening to you talking there, and you're explaining about how you've worked since you're 15, and it's still that fact that you feel even now in this day and age that you have to explain yourself like that. And the more I'm listening to it and that I'm thinking through like how people are, it's just mad to me that in this day and age there's still so much stigma around people needing to have a benefit to help them
Needing help.
get through a hard time. And being a single parent is so hard in so many ways. Don't get me wrong, it is the most rewarding job, but it's also the hardest job, and I mean job, in the world. And the fact that people have to not only raise their children alone, they then have to, go out to work is tough. And in the countries that we live in these first world countries where we're supposed to have help and support, obviously in an ideal world, when you have a child, you think that you're going to be happily ever after with the person you have a child with, and everything's
Yeah.
going to work out for the best. People say, like, I've heard people say, oh, she's just having another kid so she can claim more money.
Ugh.
And that phrase is what's wrong with society,
Makes me
because
so mad.
I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think people do that kind of thing. I think people genuinely think when they have a kid with someone that this is it. This is going to be the moment that I settle down and, build a family and stay with this man or woman, whoever you have a child with, that's going to, you know, help me, and provide for us, and everything's going to be peachy creamy. And I genuinely think that's how most people feel when that sort of thing happens.
Mm.
And I don't think they go, oh, I'm going to do this because I'm going to scrounge some more money off the government. Because I'm sorry, you try living on benefits.
It's hard.
I mean,
Like,
it's hard, isn't it?
it's hard. And now, for people that aren't aware, the benefit system has a 2 children cap. It doesn't matter how many kids you have, you only get paid for 2. So if I was to have another child now, I wouldn't get paid for that child till Grace turns 18 and no longer classes as a child. So that phrase of, oh, they're just having more kids, like, I don't know what it's like. Actually, I'm going to just backtrack. I don't know what it's like in Ireland. I don't know if you have a two child cap, but in England, we have a 2 child cap on benefits you can get, not on child benefit. That's the government thing that's regardless of children, but on the universal credit, which is the benefit system everyone goes on now, is you only get support for 2 children. So
Wow.
if I had another one, I wouldn't get paid for that child any additional support until Grace turned 18 and became an adult. So then I wouldn't be getting any money for her. So that
Wow.
phrase of, oh yeah, they're just having more kids to get more money off the government is a load of bollocks, if I'm honest, because it's not
It's an
possible.
absolutely
Like,
disgusting phrase as well.
yeah, it makes me so mad as well when people think, oh, you're living on benefits, so you're just like living the dream because you don't have to work and you're just getting given money, but you get given like under minimum wage on benefits.
Yeah, it's lower than, I mean, like the way they work it out over here and the way it used to be worked out, I'm pretty sure in England. I mean, I can't really remember, to be honest. It was a long time, but I know the way they work it out over here roughly is there's like, depending on whatever size of family, there's like a basic living wage of an amount that they think you need to live on a week. And then I think what they do is give you like 60% of that. So when you're on benefit, you're actually, it's not the bare minimum amount you need to live on, it's 60% of the bare minimum
Mm,
amount you need to live on. So when you have to make that choice to be on benefits, it's not a good choice to make.
it's not the
You
easy
know,
way
it's
out either.
it's
It's
not the
not
easy way
just,
out.
no.
It's for people that are in desperate situations or bad situations to make sure that they don't starve or, don't lose a roof over their head. Just try and keep people afloat and going until they can do something to
Mm,
change their situation. But in many instances, it creates such a divide between, say, like the working class and the middle class of people. It creates
mm,
such a financial divide that it just makes things so hard. And nobody wants to be kind of struggling on benefits. No one wants to not have enough money to go and get their nails done or to, go on a holiday to treat themselves, especially when you're working
mm.
and having to claim benefits to top it up. And you're a single mom on top of that. I mean, we were working out kind of money, what your outgoings would be roughly a month, and then what your incomings are a month. People are barely making ends meet when they're
Yeah.
having to claim. It's UCC, is it, over there now?
Yeah, universal credit. So you see that we
Yeah,
I think there are still some people on the old system, but as far as I'm aware, most people are being migrated over to the new
UC.
system now.
And that's the kind of benefits payment whether you've got a job or not, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
it's UC.
it's all the
So
same.
like the if you don't have a job, you're on less than the bare minimum that you need to live on. And if you do have a job, you're probably in the exact same situation, because once you start earning a certain amount, it comes out of the
Yeah.
money that you receive. So when you're a single parent and you're in that situation, you then have the issue. And I was shocked when you were telling me how expensive childcare was
Mm.
over there. You then have the issue of how much childcare you can actually afford to pay out of that money that you have to live on a week, and whether it is actually of any benefit to try and get a few extra hours of work in a week or not,
This is
because
it.
childcare is ridiculous.
And this is why I'm so, like, I'm really grateful for my childcare situation. So I'm really lucky in the sense that my mother-in-law, Darcy's nana, was all like from day one when I found out I was pregnant, she was like, well, when you go back to work, I'll have her. It's not a problem at all. Like, it's not an issue. She's at home because she's got younger kids and she's a foster carer. So she was like, absolutely not a problem. So I'm really grateful in that situation that when I did go back to work, I didn't have a childcare cost associated to it. I I always send her to her nana's with a packed lunch and a bag with nappies in and wipes in and all that kind of stuff. But I never had like an actual cost associated to childcare. But it only really kind of like opened my eyes to how hard it is when Darcy started preschool. So we then, as of April this year, if you're a working family and you have a 2-year-old, you get 15 hours free childcare. So that's when we decided I was going to put Darcy into preschool because she's so ready for it. And I was going to get the free 15 hours. But I got the bill for what it would have been for this term if I didn't have 15 hours a week for free. And it was going to be £1,400 for 15 hours a week. Now, bearing in mind, if you were to take into account the pick up and drop off, you could only actually work probably 12 hours a week,
Yeah.
13 if you worked close to the preschool that your child went to. And, you know, if you have to go through the settling in phase, like I'm doing with Darcy, where it should be full days, but it's half days because we're doing settling sessions, like, how are you supposed to work around such a small amount if you can't afford £1,400 a term to top up your childcare to make it full time? Like, how are you supposed to go back to work? So I'm not surprised people make the decision to not work until their kids are at school because you can't afford it.
Yeah.
Childcare is so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? And like, even at that, if it's free childcare, the cost of that is obviously coming out of the government.
Yeah.
But because it's not classed as a benefit.
And it's for working families. So everyone's like, oh, well, they work.
Yeah.
That's why they get free childcare.
Yeah.
They're paying into the system.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
it's just madness. Like, as long as it's not packaged as a benefit, then you're fine. Like,
Yeah. It's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you
yeah,
don't. You
yeah,
can't kind of
absolutely.
do the right thing at all. And it's so I I have found it so stressful being a single parent,
Mm.
and just, you know, not even with the working stuff aside, even just the daily kind of being a single parent, because even if you do have support systems around like you do, it's not the same because you're the one person that's there day in, day out. You put to bed, you do the breakfast, you're there. You know, if they fall over and cut themselves, you wipe up their messes when they're eating, you teach them how to use their cutlery. I mean, it's just endless. You're tidying up after them. You get to see them at their best and their worst. And there's nobody around you to share that with you, to share that burden, to share that workload, to share the happiness, the joy, the tears, the frustration, all of it. And like, I know, like in your case, you're very clear that you've got your mother-in-law, you know, who's very helpful, but it's
Yeah.
still, and I think that's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Mm.
knocking that at all. I think it's fantastic that you have that, because I didn't have that with, I had it a bit with Maya, but I didn't have it so much with Max. And it can be really hard when when you don't have, like, I would class her as family. She's your
Yeah.
mother-in-law, she's family. And when you don't have family around, like when I came over to Ireland, I have no family over here. It's just
Mm.
me. And so it's just the people that I've made friends with. And I always feel like I'm imposing on people that are my friends. And don't get me wrong, I had a couple of friends in particular that were so good in helping me with Max when I was working, when I had my pizza shops and stuff. And it wasn't until, you know, and I had to take him to work with me so often.
Mm.
So often. And it wasn't until it was suggested to me that he, you know, really needed me at home. He's ASD, so he's on the spectrum. And so I ended up giving up work and I care for him. And he needed it. He really did. Me staying at home with him has been just
Best thing.
huge in his
Yeah.
progress. Yeah, the best thing I could have done. But it still comes with that stigma. I still feel like I can't really talk about, you know, my income and stuff like that, because I feel like there's a lot of stigma attached to it. And it was so hard trying to, especially with him having additional needs and stuff. And I really struggled, and I did feel very alone through a lot of it. And it can be a really hard feeling. And I think even when you do, what my point is, even when you do have people that are there, like I have my friends with Max, I have my family around with Maya, even when you have those people there, they're not the parent, they're not the one doing it all. And trying to juggle all of that with a job is incredibly hard. It's incredibly demanding. And I don't think we talk enough about the demands it places on the parent. There's so much, oh, what do you say? Like, it's like you feel like you've got to do the right thing. You know, as a parent, you're always like, I've got to do the right thing. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing to do? And then, you know, I need to work. I need to make sure I'm working. And even if that's just to show my kids, you know, this is what they should be doing and to be a good example and stuff like that. But we put so much pressure on ourselves. And I think that especially single parents, deserve a bit of a break from that stigma and that pressure. And,
I
you
agree.
know, I think there are a lot more ways that we could be helping people who are single parents in our communities as well, with, after school clubs or things that are maybe aimed at taking the pressure off parents. I mean, I don't know. I'm just freestyling with this here, but I feel like there's a lot more we could be doing in our communities if there's single parents that aren't working and are happy to stay at home. Perhaps the government could do initiatives where they could run childcare creches that
Mm.
are free for other single parents only.
Yeah,
Perhaps there could be more initiatives looked at like that, where communities want to help each other,
yeah.
you know,
And
and it would
I think it'd be good
carry
if
on.
there was stuff like that because,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, nobody starts out wanting to be a single parent. Nobody intends to be a single parent.
Yeah.
That's you don't intend to put this much pressure on yourself. You don't intend to start out having to be the only one. And, like you said, I'm really grateful because I do have, you know, my mother-in-law to help me out with childcare. And I kind of co-parenting with Darcy's dad. It's different with Grace's dad. He has no involvement, but she is 16, so it is a lot easier in that sense. Childcare doesn't seem to be
Yeah.
an issue with a 16-year-old. And I do have my mum. Granted, she lives in South Africa, but she is on the other end of the phone if I need to just vent about stress. But it is really it is tough when it's just you because the responsibility falls on you. You know, you want to make sure that you're setting a good example, you're being a good role model, you're doing everything right, you're taking care of all their needs, you're hitting all of the bases, you're helping your child hit every milestone at the correct age that they should be, and, encouraging them to do all those things. And, should she know her colors by now? Should she know her letters by now? You're always putting that pressure on yourself. But then on top of that, you have sleepless nights if you have a kid that doesn't sleep. You then have to go through all the different phases of children. You go through the teething phase, you go through the sleep regressions, you go through the separation anxiety, you go through all of those things. And when you're a single parent, it doesn't matter how many friends or family you have around you, you still go to bed at night by yourself, wondering whether or not did I do the right thing? Because it all falls on you, regardless of how many people you have around. And I do feel, and it's never an imposition with my mother-in-law to have Darcy, and she tells me all the time. But even I feel like I'm putting her out by asking her to have
Yeah.
Darcy. Like, you know, at the moment, obviously we're doing all the kind of settling with preschool. So it's like half days. So it's like I'll drop her off in the morning and then I go to work and then I pick her up. And then it's, oh, well, can I bring her over to yours so I can go back to work for a few hours? And I'm always like, are you sure? As long as it's okay. It's not an inconvenience. Like, I don't want to be an inconvenience. Like, I don't want to be putting you out. Like, I'm always feeling bad about it.
Yeah.
Even though, she always tells me not to. Like, she's always like, no, I absolutely don't mind. I love having her, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's absolutely fine with it. But you just feel like you're putting people out all the time. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, I've contemplated so many times being like, would it just be easier if I just didn't work until Darcy was at school? Because then I would just not have to worry about this stuff. And then I'm like, no, because then you'll have been out of work for 5 years and no one's going to hire you. Let's be honest. Like, it's such a hard situation to be in where I'm like, oh my God, like you doubt yourself 24/7. You literally do.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't give single parents enough credit for how hard it is, even if you do have friends and family that will help you out with, childcare and looking after them and help you do things. Like, it is so hard being a single parent. The most rewarding job, and I genuinely wouldn't change it for a second, but it's rough. Like, it's not for the
It
faint.
it is. It's really rough. And what you were saying there about like stressing out about putting people out, that's a everyday stress.
Mm,
It's a constant every single day stress. And you constantly feel like you're putting people out. Like I used to feel the very same with Max and with Maya. Constantly having this stress, and that's just one of many stresses that is constantly in the back of your head as a single parent. And like, it's if you don't have a lot of stress in your head a lot of the time, you can't really fathom what it feels like to have little things like that just constantly whirring around in the back of your brain. It's like a
Mm.
constant semi state of anxiety about
All the
certain
time.
things. Yeah, and it can really put a lot of pressure on you. And everything that you were saying there, like the sleepless nights and, all of that sort of thing, it's really hard work. I did find it a lot harder with Max because obviously he has additional needs.
Yeah.
And, when it was suggested to me that he has additional needs, it would be much better for you to not be working. It was almost like a bit of relief for me in a way, because I was like, do you know how hard it has been?
Mm.
How hard it has been to juggle everything that I'm doing. And that is, when people say it's a juggling act, it really is a juggling act.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's so many balls in the air at the same time. And when you're worried, like I used to think, oh, because I'd get a phone call from the school, oh, Max hasn't been collected. And I'd ring the crash that he was at, and they say, oh God, sorry, we forgot. I'm like, oh my God, so there'd be things. So then I'd have to leave work and go and collect him, even though it had been organized. And I felt like the school probably think that I'm useless and haven't organized a crash to come and collect him. My work probably thinks that I'm useless because I had to, even though I had, it was just out of my hands. But then there'd be, days when we'd have to go in and he wouldn't have slept at nighttime because of issues that we'd have at home. I wouldn't have slept. I'd be absolutely wrecked. He didn't want to go into school. Then I'm like, I can't really afford to take another day off work this week, because if I take another day off, then I'm down another like 60 euros. And then I don't have enough money to cover all my bills this week.
Mm.
And that's a big pressure as well. There's only so many days off that you can have, or hours out of work that you can have, before it then affects the rest of everything. And then you have to start
Yeah.
worrying, well, if I can't pay that bill this week, where am I going to take the money from to cover that? And then you start getting into this really bad cycle. So when that was suggested to me, it was such a relief. But at the same time, it meant a massive kind of pay cut, and
Mm.
a lot of different issues arise from that. So there's so much stigma to, being a single mom. And I have to say, since meeting my husband and getting married, it has taken a lot of that weight off of my mind. So I have a lot of respect for single parents, because I know I'm not a single parent now, but I have definitely been there. And I know how hard it can be,
Mm.
and how I just wish that the general public would, take a minute to appreciate the work that single parents do. And instead of just, oh, look at her, she's on benefits, actually think, like, what are you saying here? These people need help. They got it
This is
hard
it.
enough as
And
it is.
it's like, yeah, if you take away, like, because obviously like financial stress is something that everybody feels, especially in the world we're living in at the moment, with the cost of living crisis. Utility bills are always going up, food bills are going up, everything is more expensive, but wages are staying the same. So, like, kind of broadening what we're saying, not financial stress doesn't just fall on single parents, but if you're struggling in a couple, try being a single income and struggle. Like, when you've still got the same amount of mouths to feed, if you're a married couple with 2 kids, you have both work, you've got 2 incomes and you're struggling, then try being a single income with 2 kids and you've still got all the same stuff to pay for. Like, you still have all the same bills, you still have all the same school costs and like food costs and all of this stuff. And it's just never ending. Like, it is a constant thing. And like, financial stress for me is something that massively triggers my mental health. That's a huge thing for me. Like, when I feel like I can't pay for things, it's like my kind of PTSD trigger comes in of, you're losing control of everything, you're going to lose everything, even if I just, can't pay a petrol bill or something stupid. Like, my whole world falls apart. But I'm not really sure where I was going with that. I've just lost my train of thought. over. You're gonna have to take
financial
over.
financial stress. And when you were saying that, I was gonna say, again, that just brings it back to sort of what I was saying. Like, if there's two of you in a house, but say, like you said, two kids, both parents working, if you have a bad few nights with your child, or there's something going on, or your child is sick, or the creche doesn't collect them, one of you can take the time off without it being that much of a financial issue. Say, like, if you have to have 4 hours off in one day and then the next day off, right? So you might be down 100 quid for that time off that week. Yes, it's stressful. I'm not saying it isn't, but you have the other person's wage coming into the house as well. When you're a single parent on your own, that £100 down means that you're not paying something that week, which means that for the next 3 or 4 weeks, you're behind on that money, and you're trying to chop it and change it and match it up from somewhere, which then means that if you have any days in those next 3 or 4 weeks where suddenly you have to go and collect your child or something is wrong, that's it. You're thrown out for months. And before you know it, you have to get a loan, or you have to get an overdraft, or you use your credit card. And it's such a hard cycle to be in.
Yeah, and it is. And there are so many people that really, really struggle in that. Like, again, I can't stress enough where I'm not trying to say that, oh, look at me, I'm so lucky, but I have the flexibility that I can work at home. So if I do have to, like at the moment where I have to kind of take 45 minutes ish out of the day to go and pick Darcy up and drop her off, I can then make that time up in the evening. But not everyone has that luxury. I just have the luxury that my job can be done from home. But some people that in like retail or hospitality or NHS or public services or anything like that, or are teachers, or anything like that, you don't have the luxury of being like, oh well, I've got to nip out for an hour, but I'll just sign back on this evening and do an hour and make it up. You don't have that luxury. So if you're in that kind of profession and you're a single person, you've got no one else that can kind of help you out with collecting a sick child or taking time off if they're poorly, or the creche doesn't pick them up, or the nursery's closed because they've had a flood, and you've got no one that can have your kids, like, and you don't have the ability to make up the time. That's a huge stressor, and there's nothing that helps anybody out in that situation. It's very much like, well, you chose to have kids, so you're going to have to deal with it. See you later. Bye.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, just kind of on that note, like, I do think, there needs to be more done to help single parents, but single working parents for sure. And like, there's so many massive companies out there that could do more to help the working parents they have, things like, putting childcare on site, like creating creches and daycares that you can work and drop your kids off on site, so you can start your shift and drop the kids off there, and then that they're there, they're happy, they're safe, you can work, and there's not then going to be any kind of commute from childcare to work and vice versa, and like massive companies could afford to do that, and they could even kind of subsidize it with taking a small percentage from your wages if you use the daycare. And I think they'd probably find a hell of a lot more like single parents, and even just working parents in general, finding it easier to be like, okay, yeah, I can go back to work full time because childcare is included with where I work, and I don't need to worry about the whole commuting from the preschool or the childminders to work and factoring that in with the hours you're available. I think it would just take the pressure off massively.
Would it, even that, even just listening to that, I feel like it's lifting the pressure off. I remember how hard it was for me with Maya and then with Max, constantly having to rely on my friends and having to, would you mind having them? Would you mind? That was a huge amount of stress. Just having to ask people, could you pick him up from creche today? I'm on a late shift. Just knowing that you will always have that solid, safe creche there, that solid, safe childcare that you could go in, you could do a 6-hour shift, 7-hour shift, fine, no problem, because the childcare
Mm.
is right there. You know, if anything is wrong, then they're going to see it right there where you work. If your child gets sick, they're going to know straight away. It's going to be just so much less hassle, less
Mm.
stress, less kind of, like you said, the commuting, everything, that just so much easier. And if there'd been something like that available for me when I, went back into work, it would have been a godsend. I could have done the
Mm.
job that I wanted to do instead of doing 3 different jobs, running around like a mad thing, trying to get to my different jobs and picking Maya up from here, dropping her off to there, doing this, that, and the other. It was just so stressful. And I
Mm.
think I definitely agree, you know, for working single parents, there needs to be a lot more initiatives and help and support,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's hard being a single parent on benefits because you really struggle with funds. But sometimes it's the easier option than going back to work, because
Mm.
there's so many things to juggle as a single parent going back into work. And if you could have something like that, I mean, it would be life changing for a lot of
Mm.
people.
Oh yeah,
Actually
massively.
life changing. And it would be a huge, like, what's the word? Not like a turn on, but do you know what I mean? It would be a huge thing for a company to be able to offer that.
Yeah, a massive
I mean,
incentive to make
that's
you
the word.
like
Yeah.
want to
Want
look
to
at
go
jobs.
there.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're, a single parent and you're like, right, so I've got, a 2-year-old, for example. So you're looking at jobs and you're like, right, I need to work around this. I can get them in preschool here for this hours. And you're looking at the hours and is it flexible? And could I remote work and this, that, and the other? And then you see on the advert on-site childcare, you'd be like, problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sign me
And
right.
they might say, oh, look,
Like,
it'll cost you £1 out of every hour's wages. I'd be like, yep,
yeah, I'd be like,
fine.
cool. Because you'd be paying that
I'm down with
anyway,
that.
paying somewhere
Yeah.
else,
Yeah. And the
and
government could still give their 15 hours
yeah,
subsidized,
exactly.
and
You
it could
could
just
still
go
do,
towards that.
yeah, you could still do like, because full time like childcare. So obviously outside of, if this was obviously on site, it would be office hour childcare, but normally it's like
Yeah.
30 hours a week is classed as full time. So you could get your 15 hours subsidized through the government funding and then you pay for the other 15 hours. And if you're only being
Yeah.
docked like £1 an hour out of your wages there in daycare, you're only losing £15 a week, but you're
Yeah.
saving a fortune because you can work full time. You have your child on site with you. You don't have any additional commuting costs because you're going there anyway, because that's where you work.
Yeah.
And
And
it,
not only are you kind of saving money and, you know, having less driving around and all of that stuff, it's actually probably going to be working wonders for your mental health.
mm, massive. Because think of how many, how much less stressful it would be if you
Yeah.
knew that you could drive to one place where you could drop your child off in childcare and then go to work. And you can
Yeah.
do your
Drop
job.
drop your child off in childcare, walk through the double doors, put on your apron and go off in, and you're in work.
Exactly. And then you can do your shift and come back, pick your child up and go home.
So
Like it would, and I
it just
think
sounds so stress free.
it would help get so many, it would help get the single parents who don't have the luxuries that I have of having, a family member who's willing to help me out so that
Yeah.
I can go back to work. Like,
But
if I
even
know,
at that, right? If you had this opportunity, I would imagine you would choose this or
mm,
over having to keep asking your mother-in-law, do you mind
yeah,
having her this day, this day, this day? Because I know if I had someone, if I say if my mom or my mother-in-law, whatever was here and someone that I could ask, I would still rather organize it myself and do it through a proper channel than be what
yeah,
I would feel would be putting on
putting
someone.
them
Like,
out.
I don't want to put
Yeah.
on them. Yeah, I don't want.
Even
And I'm
though,
sure that they don't think that at all.
no,
But
no,
it's what you think in your head, isn't
it's
it?
how you feel, isn't it? Like, because
Yeah.
I've literally said it to Debbie so many times, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, is this okay? Like, I feel like it's such an inconvenience. Like, and she always comes back with, it's not a problem. Like, I'm happy to have her. Like, this is not an
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Spending time with my grandchild is not an inconvenience. But in my head, I'm like, well,
But you still feel like it is.
so I have to organize this. She's my responsibility. And I feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm like having to ask
And we
somebody else.
cannot be the only two people in the world that feel this way. I
If
I
we
would put
are,
money on it that every other single parent, that is the full-time parent, feels this way.
yeah. And if we are the only two people on the planet, then I think we just need to give up now. We're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
We're doing parenting wrong.
Yeah. We went wrong somewhere.
Yeah. We need to like
Oh, dear.
restore factory settings.
Back up a
We've
bit.
gone wrong.
Take the wrong turning.
But I do
But
also
yeah,
think that, we need to give single parents a bit of slack, and we need to give
yeah,
single working parents a bit more like credit where credit is due, because
yeah,
it is, being a parent is like my favorite thing in the whole world. Like,
yeah.
I'm
Me
so
too.
grateful for both of my kids, and it is my favorite job, but it is a really tough one because you are,
Yeah,
responsible for another human coming into the world and coming into society, and it's a massive responsibility. And
yeah.
I don't think pet like people fully get it. If you don't have kids, I don't think you understand the
No,
magnitude of being a parent.
I mean they're your whole world.
Yeah, like
So
100.
not only do you have your normal problems like what every adult has, you have the problems that are associated with being a parent, and that is the worry and the stress of everything that goes in with parenting. And it is a lot of worry and stress, as amazing as it is a lot of worry and stress for the pure simple fact that that child is your world, and you will do everything you can to give them the very best of it.
Well, yeah,
And that's a lot of
100%.
pressure. That's
And
so
that's
much
like,
pressure.
that's not even taking into account making sure that you teach them, right from
Mm,
wrong, and you
mm,
handle all different things that come up in the right way, like, and
yeah.
I know we're going to do another podcast when it comes to like parenting teenagers, because that's a whole different kettle of fish. Like,
Yeah.
and the difference between parenting a teenage boy to a teenage girl is very different. Like, and but when you have to deal with the things that happen in their life, and like how you handle just the day-to-day stresses of making sure that you're
Yeah.
doing the right thing, and you're giving them, the right boundaries and the right tools, and you're giving them enough love, but you're also making sure they've got a clean house and a happy home, and they've got all the things that they need, but also
Yeah.
remembering to give yourself all the things that you need, because
Oh, let's be honest. Most of us don't.
we don't, like, we
We
honestly don't,
don't give
like.
ourselves all the things we need because we give so much to everything else. There's quite often not enough.
And there's quite often, like, for me, I know that sometimes I just go to bed and there is nothing left of me to
Yeah.
be like, oh, I'm gonna, do some self-care now. I'm gonna look
Yeah.
after myself.
No.
I'm gonna watch my programs and drink a cup of tea. I'm like, no, it is 1 o'clock in the
Just want
morning.
to get into bed and
Finished
sleep.
work. I need to go to bed now.
I'm
Like,
shattered.
you know,
And you can guarantee that'll be the night that at 2 o'clock in the morning there's a knock at the door and
hmm yeah, it will
Mom.
be something's happened, or,
Yeah.
Darcy will wake up and demand that the only place she can sleep is inside my pajamas, because apparently that's what she likes to do now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, so I'm not sleeping for the rest of the night because you're now completely in my personal space. And,
Yeah.
I have a king size bed, but she insists on sleeping attached to
You
me.
being all over it.
Like, and it is one of those, like, I
Or
don't,
if you wake up to a child ill in the middle of the night and you have
oh,
to strip down beds, clean up sick,
oh,
bathe the
Jesus.
child, dry them, put
Yeah,
new sheets on the bed, get them back into bed. And by the time you get back into bed, it's 4:30, 5 in the morning. And then you're like,
yeah,
right, I've got to be awake in half an hour.
exactly.
And
And
then
then
you have to get
the
up
goes
and
off.
get them breakfast and organize
And
them and get off for the day.
yeah, and then do it all over again. Like, that was me
Yeah.
like a couple of weeks ago when Darcy had the chicken pox and she was puking over
Yeah.
everything. I think I went through every single bed set that I own,
Yeah.
and then ended up sleeping with no bed sets on and sleeping on towels because we ran out because
Yeah.
we got sick, and you're stripping beds in the middle of the night, and it is
Oh,
just
it's
like,
just it's so draining.
it really is. But and I just don't think we give them enough credit, and I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. So I think we need to just like
No,
take a minute to actually be like, do you know what, like, we do
well
so
done.
much, and
Yeah.
actually, like, I think we should be really proud of what we do and how we achieve
I
it.
actually agree. I 100% agree. And you know what? I think from now on, I'm going to be a little bit more proactive with shouting out people that I know are single parents and saying to
Yeah.
them, every so often, just like, you're doing a good job.
Be like, you're actually
Just,
smashing this.
yeah, yeah. Because I'm definitely guilty of being so wrapped up in my own crap that I don't like. And I think a lot of us are. We don't give pause to other people and what they're going through a lot of the time. And we
Yeah.
get so wrapped up in what we're going through that I think, and I don't know, right? This is going off track a little bit, but I don't know if stuff like COVID is to blame from that because we were all so isolated for so long that it's like
Yeah.
we've kind of got so wrapped up in ourselves that we've forgotten the kind of meaning of community and looking out
Yeah.
for each other a little bit, maybe. But it is something to bear in mind that if you know a single parent, if your next door neighbor is a single parent, it might be a nice idea every so often to just knock on the door and say, "Are you all right? Do you want me to come and sit with the kids while you're going to have
Have a
half
bath.
an hour to yourself or
Yeah.
something?" Yeah,
Would you like a
you
hot cup of
know.
tea this week rather than one in the
Yeah,
microwave 5 times?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Or do you just want some like, or adult conversation for half an hour?
Yeah. Would you like to talk about something that doesn't revolve around an Australian speaking dog?
Bluey.
Yeah. Because that's my
Yeah.
life. Like, my life is a Bluey episode.
Bluey.
It's
Yeah,
like,
ours is Sonic. Would you like to
yeah,
talk about something other than Sonic the Hedgehog? Yes,
yeah. I
please.
think I think that would be good. And I think I'm going to do the same. I think I'm going to like definitely be more consciously aware of like letting single parents and single working parents know that they're doing a really
They're
good
not
job,
alone.
because nobody set out to be a single parent. Nobody, you know, has a baby or plans to have a baby and plans to do it by themselves. Things
Yeah.
happen, like situations change. I ended up a single parent when Grace was a baby, and I ended up a single parent pregnant with Darcy. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't planned. It wasn't the way that it was supposed to be, but we're making the
Yeah.
best of our situation. And I wouldn't change
Yeah.
any of it. I wouldn't even change hard days. I wouldn't change the stresses, the frustrations. I wouldn't change the nights where I sit in bed and cry because I'm not sure I've done the right thing today. Or did I
Yeah.
handle that situation well? Or am I making the right choices? Am I doing the best for my kids?
Yeah.
Am I feeding them enough green vegetables? Like,
And then when they get older, it's like, was I right to give out about that? Should I
yeah,
let them do that? Or are they old enough to do that?
is
Am
that
I
too
am I
much?
right to be strict about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I giving her too much responsibility? Am I not giving them enough?
Yeah.
Does she have enough free
Yeah.
reign? Do I need to pull her back in again? Is she too independent or not enough? Like, it is
Yeah.
a never ending cycle, but I wouldn't change any of it, like,
Not me
at
at all.
all, because it is my favorite job in the history of the
Yeah.
world, is being a parent. But
We
yeah,
might not be able to change big corporations from this podcast, but we can certainly change our own selves and how we treat other single parents going forward. That's for
yeah.
sure.
And hopefully people that have listened to this episode have are now going to go away feeling the same, patting themselves on the back a bit more if you are a single parent, and
Yeah.
you know and also
Give
just,
yourselves a round of applause.
yeah, 100%. And if you're not a single parent but you are a parent, again, give yourself a round of applause, because just
Yeah.
being a parent is tough. But you know just be a bit kinder to
To
ourselves, I
each
think.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Each other and ourselves.
so yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I think that's been a really good episode. I've really enjoyed that, and I hope everybody else has as well. Don't forget, we really appreciate all of the support that we get on these podcasts, so please do give us a like and a follow. And if you don't already follow us on Facebook and TikTok, we do put stuff on there quite regularly, so feel free to give us a follow. And if you like this episode or you want to hear more stuff like this, leave us a review. That would be really awesome, because we do read them and we do really like to hear from everybody. So thank you very much, everyone, and we will see you next week.